Okay, I wanted to do a little bit of reviewing of the lesson we had on Friday. We didn't have enough time. There are two key points that I want you to keep in mind when executing the showing writing exercises. Now, in class, just as a quick review, we took a look at the first two sentences from the telling writer and the showing writer. And we looked at, for instance, some of the verbs. We have gets. We talked about how that verb has no visualization. It's too vague. It's too general. There are too many possibilities. But some of the verbs or verbals inside tense up, shifts, and then we have a participle, kneeling or gerund. These verbs all have a visual aspect to them. We can see. So the showing writer is very much interested in selecting diction and parts of speech, and in this case verbs, that allow him to see something in his mind. And often these are active verbs. Gets, again, is too vague, too general. Okay, then we also looked at what's functioning as the noun or the subjects in these sentences. So we have the noun muscles, our complete subject. We modify it in his left leg. And then here we just have a single pronoun, he. And again, we talked about the same problem. This has billions of possibilities. At least this many, right? Exactly. Here, what has happened is that we've taken he, and the showing writer, in a sense, has factored he into something more specific and concrete, muscles in this case. This is another idea that we didn't really talk about in class, and we'll talk about more, and that is the idea of factoring diction. So in this case, we have on one end of a continuum words that are vague, general, imprecise, and in this case we're dealing with nouns here, okay? And we move closer when we have muscles in his left leg. You can even make that more precise, perhaps his hamstring, his left calf. So that illustrates this important movement that you're going to do when you're selecting words, of going from the vague to the more concrete and specific. This is an important skill to have. If we look back, there's another good example of factoring. The showing writer selects Adidas spikes, and the telling writer never moves past shoes. And we can do this also on our continuum as well, where we have on this end probably Adidas spikes is the prime form of the word thing. And as we move this way, we might have things you wear or clothing. And then we get to shoes. And as we get closer, we might get to athletic wear. And then finally we get factored down to Adidas spikes. So again, that's important. So on Friday we talked about the the verbs, the nouns, they all have the same principle that we want something concrete and fully factored. Even if we look at some of the adjectives, and you want to be very careful about selecting adjectives sparsely. You've got frayed here, so that's something you can see, gray. Our initial adjective here is ready, which you can't see anything. Here, this is the first adjectival movement in the sentence, but notice in his left leg that what's inside that adjective prep phrase is something concrete and helps assist the visualization. So that's the first key issue that we wanted to emphasize on Friday, is the sense of concrete singular nouns, verbs, and adjectives. Okay, now, next issue we didn't get to, and that is that a very important choice is made in the telling writer. He ends the sentence, for instance, he examines his shoes, puts a period there, then begins his next sentence, another period. I'm interested in you reflecting on what is significant about this space or this decision that's made by putting a period and starting a next sentence. Same situation here, but a different decision is made by the showing writer. So he ties his right shoe, he puts a period there. He's making a different decision between shoe and cross and between pull and loop. That's what is significant. I want you to think about for a moment before I reveal that answer. Hopefully in class someone would have noticed that there are a couple ways of describing this, but here you've got a primary image tying his shoe. And what the showing writer does is that he expands the image. So he doesn't shift to a new image. So in many ways, if this, I'll stay with red, I guess. If the red shoe or the right shoe is the primary image, the next sentence stays in the same color. Now what happens over with telling writer here, we'll use some colors. We introduce this idea of examining his shoes, but we immediately shift and our focus and go to his ankle hurts. We shift again. He hears the announcer tell the athletes to get ready after he gets in position. So we begin with the same image or idea, but then we keep shifting in the subsequent sentences. So we never expand. There's no expansion. Okay? And this is the second very important skill. We're going to use this skill in all of our writing. It doesn't have to do with just the showing writing exercises. So that's the key to understand the distinction between the showing writer and the telling writer. The other aspect of the expansion that I want you just to focus on here, because sometimes this becomes confusing. When I say expand or extend the elaboration of an idea, I don't mean to just repeat yourself. So this sentence has a different visualization than the previous one. So it's in many ways it's factoring the right tying the shoe, right? And this third sentence here is different from this sentence. Here is the image of crossing, and then this sentence is the image of looping. So don't confuse extending the elaboration with merely just repeating yourself. You want to continue thinking about a new way to see what you're looking at. Another way of looking at the difference between what the telling writer does and the showing writer does is that the camera lens, we could say, the camera lens that the showing writer uses is very small, is narrow. It's a tight shot in film theory. The lens of the telling writer is very wide. It's almost like a panoramic shot, a very wide angle. Okay, it's taking in everything. So we want to focus on a very narrow lens as we're completing these exercises. Okay, so you're going to locate this section in CEA. You're going to be following these directions, okay, for number 1. If you have already done the he is scared telling sentence, then go ahead and choose one of these telling sentences, but still follow these directions. And for this first assignment, go ahead and submit your assignment by hand on a piece of paper. That might make it a little bit faster. Okay, good luck. Let me know if you have any questions. I just thought of one additional concept that I wanted, another math concept, and it has to do with extending, another way to think of what I mean by this. So if you, and I'll use colors again. So the showing writer, like I said, has image A. And what he does with the next sentence, he's got A2, and then A3. So this all is focused on the same concept, but it's being factored. The telling writer then has image A. He introduces image A in a sentence, puts a period, then introduces another image, B, puts a period, and then introduces another image, C, and puts a period. So we want to focus on this idea. Okay, now I'm finished.